iPhone mirroring is the app that lets you remotely use your iPhone. Good idea, huh? Well, it's executed horribly. And in today's video, I'd like to talk about why it's so bad and what Apple could do to fix it. Before we get into things here, I'd like to thank the members of the channel as well as let you all know about the little Discord channel we have. So if you'd like to talk to like-minded individuals or be a part of the community, then check out the link below. So, iPhones and Macs. For a long time, these two devices coexisted peacefully, meaning I didn't really need a Mac to use an iPhone, and I didn't need an iPhone to use a Mac. It worked pretty well. Of course, you could use them together with stuff like iTunes and airdropping, but that was really about it. And yes, I know there's messages and FaceTiming, but that's in the iCloud, so I consider that a little bit different. What I'm trying to say here is that these two spaces were separate from each other. You could have controlled the phone with the iMac remotely, and I'd argue that you still can't, and you'll find out why soon. In 2024, however, Apple added this little thing to macOS called iPhone mirroring, which sounds simple enough. You can control the phone from the computer. In theory, this would work just fine. It's a nice, low-cost addition to the system, and you can just ignore it if you never had any use for it. If there were no major issues with the app, then I wouldn't be making a video on this. However, there exists a major software breaking issue within the app that I just haven't seen many people talk about. The first time you open the app, you are required to unlock your phone. No big deal, right? Well, this requires you to take the phone out of your pocket and unlock it. You still don't see an issue? Well, since the phone is already in your hand, why not just use the phone as designed instead of navigating through it on your Mac? This here is really the main issue for me. This is why the app fails in my view. When the first impression of the app is telling you to take out your phone and use it like it was designed, at this point just close iPhone mirroring and just use the phone as intended. You can make some arguments for why this app is useful. Maybe someone can make a quick response about checking your messages. Oh well, what about Twitter and Instagram DMs? I hope you see where I'm going with this one. Most of these services have a dedicated app on macOS like Messages, or a website like X and Instagram, thus nullifying the use of the iPhone mirroring app. But what about authentication apps? Well, yes, this is a good point. This is one of those cases where the app like this makes sense and it works. However, sometimes these require Face ID, and the use of the camera isn't available on iPhone mirroring. I've read that in some cases you don't need to use Face ID, and it lets you use the user password on macOS instead. But I didn't have that experience, so it's really a case-by-case scenario. So, since you can do everything on the iPhone on the Mac nowadays, in many cases the experience on the Mac is better than the iPhone, what really is the point of this app? Maybe you want to screen record your iPhone. But yet again, screen recording is already on iOS. But maybe you want to be able to save the footage directly to the drive on your computer. Yet again, you can already do this, and this has been a feature for a very long time now, being QuickTime recording. In fact, this is what I did all the way back in 2016 when I did a Clash Royale video. Well, what about playing games? Well, actually, this is one of those arguments that I can somewhat see a defense for. Using a mouse in, say, Clash Royale, for example, is pretty good actually, and I do prefer this style of play instead of using my fingers. But this is where another issue comes into the scene, and it's lag and missed inputs. Trying to play a game like this is a little annoying. Finally, we can connect the phone to the Mac via a wire, and it can stabilize this connection. You want to know what I find concerning about this? The iPhone is clearly in sight, and it's tethered to the computer. So once again, why not just use the iPhone, the device the app was designed for? After a while of trying to come up with defenses for this app, I turned to you guys for some help. It's really good for people who don't use iCloud. You can drag and drop photos and videos, which basically creates that iCloud Photos quote-unquote one central library feeling without any monthly charges. Also applies to files. This is a good point. It lets you drag and drop photos out of the Photo app and onto the desktop. This works sometimes. At first, I really couldn't figure it out, and I was having some trouble trying to get it to work well. Turns out, just dragging and dropping will pull whatever you clicked out of the photo, turning it into a PNG image essentially. What's up, gang? This is an unpaid sponsorship for myself. Yes, go follow my Instagram page. I'll occasionally post updates for the channel, and if I get to 1,000 followers, I'd like to go live every once in a while. Yes, I am aware that I'm interrupting the video to beg for Instagram followers, but having said that, go check it out and follow @JoeQuesada on Instagram. Instead, what you can do is copy the image in the Share tab and then paste it onto the desktop. Apple could fix this by just letting us drag stuff right out of the camera onto the desktop, and this would be extremely useful. But does this work with anything else? Well, Files was covered in the post, but iMessage files work perfectly. But yet again, iMessage is already on the Mac, and you can do the exact same thing. It is a little redundant. Yes, it's nice that they put the care into the app to let you do this, but either way, it's still pretty redundant. You can use your phone in class when it's up in a phone caddy. Now, this is a very good point. A real generational divide here by a few years. In Pennsylvania, we don't have these laws yet, so this is a good point for teachers just doing it all willy-nilly. Now, the reason I never thought about this was that in my high school, when I was there at least, all other computers were banned from the classroom except for the terrible school-issued Chromebooks. So this thought had never really entered my head. Adding on top of that, I had already graduated by the time they added this. I was a sophomore in college. This is one of those cases where I can see a very good defense for the app, and it works well. Again, the only issue I see with this is remembering to get the phone authenticated before you try it. Replying to notifications is a big one. I use it a lot for 2FA apps like Microsoft Authenticator. This is another good point, and I did touch on it earlier. It seems like Microsoft 2FA works well with iPhone mirroring. Now, I would test this myself since I need to use Microsoft 2FA to log into my school, and I think it'll work just fine with Face ID and the user password from what I've read. Maybe you need to turn it off like I did, since it makes you scan the face 4 or 5 times by default before it's fully logged in, and I'm not testing this out because of pure laziness. I would have loved to talk more on some of these community ideas that you guys have, but only 3 people responded to the community posts when I'm recording this today. I do intend to do that more for the channel, so make sure to check it out every once in a while. And that leaves us with why I think this app is the most useless. There's very little use case for this app. Many of the apps that you use day to day have a website equivalent. Camera use is also disabled on the software, so you can't use the FaceTime HD camera, for example, to make an Instagram story post from your phone over iPhone mirroring. Other use cases seem to be rare, or it would just be faster to use the phone in your pocket to do like 2-factor authentication. The good use cases, like those of the phone and the phone caddy, are rare for most adults using a computer, since most users are not in school anymore. Now, how can Apple fix this app? Well, the easiest thing that I would do would be to remove the requirement to unlock the device on first use. However, this can lead to security concerns, and you can change the settings to only allow authentication once. However, with GPS and Find My plus iCloud, the computer knows which device is the closest and would know if it's on your person or in the general area. So maybe using Apple Intelligence, for example, it can recognize the patterns in your usual schedule to not require any authentication. Just an idea. My last point for the video would be that the app seems a little late. This was my first impression of the app when I was trying it out. This feels like it's 10 years too late and should have come out with Lion or Mountain Lion. Granted, I'm not sure if the technology was emerging for interactive AirPlay, but this should have come out before COVID at least. The fact that the app was released in 2024 baffles me, since using iCloud and AirPlay, you'd think this would be around longer and have gotten necessary updates. Speaking of necessary updates, I don't think this app needs any. There really isn't much made for this app, aside for some better quality of life additions that they could do. Maybe we can get a reverse, Mac mirroring. Now that's something I'd find myself using a ton. Granted, this is already a thing when on the same network from Mac to Mac, but I'd like to see this done on a phone. And that's really all I have to say for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and it made you think when was the last time you used iPhone mirroring for anything useful. Chances are it was probably talked about in this video. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and until next time, goodbye.